After riding over 500 miles on the Aventon Adventure 2, I thought it would be worthwhile to go over how this bike has held up and what my experience has been with the bike over those 500 miles. I first did the review on this bike about 4 or 5 months ago, and my conclusion at the time I had used it was that it was an excellent bike. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a well-made, well-built bike. And long story short, I still think this bike is an excellent bike and it has held up extremely well over the last 500 miles. And to quickly recap, this bike is a fat tire e-bike, features 26x4 fat tires, a 750 watt rear hub motor, 8-speed Shimano shifter, hydraulic disc brakes, some front suspension, and at this point, kind of the trademark Aventon color display. Some of the things that I noticed over these 500 miles. First, when I first got the bike, I didn't initially unlock it until later. And unlocking the bike, which you can do via the Aventon app, is a must. You need to do it because it completely changes this bike. Out of the gate, the Aventon Aventure 2 is a 20 mile per hour e-bike. Once you unlock it, it's a 28 mile per hour e-bike. And that just is a ton of power that really changes up how this bike feels. And we're gonna take the Aventon on some errands right now. I actually need to go to Kohl's to make a Amazon return. A lot of times you can return to Whole Foods, which would be a lot easier. But this one, the choices were either return it to Kohl's and they'll package it for you there, or put in a box, seal it up yourself, and bring it to UPS. And I don't have a box, and it's a pretty big package, so I'd rather just bring it to Kohl's and let them handle it for me instead. So, what have I noticed in this 500 miles I've ridden this bike? Actually, it's close to, I've actually ridden it 600 miles now. So, 100 extra bonus miles. So first, the one thing that you definitely need to do when you get this bike is to unlock it. Because out of the box, it comes as just a regular 20 mile per hour step through fat tire e-bike. Totally fine. But when you unlock it using the Aventon app, you can make it go up to 28 miles per hour on pedal assist, and that just completely changes the feel of the bike. And let's see, we are gonna take, to get out to Kohl's, it's a 6 mile ride, we're gonna take this Cedar Lake Trail here. This is a off-road bike trail. Doesn't have to cross much traffic. Actually doesn't cross any traffic at all for almost the entire stretch. So, very comfortable ride to go out there. The Kohl's itself is in a horrible strip mall, so not pleasant once you get there, but the ride out there is very pleasant. Just coming along this trail, you get this really nice bridge over the big road here. Very comfortable bridge. So from a ride quality perspective, this Aventon Aventure 2, it's a really great ride quality. Super smooth ride, big tires, good suspension. In terms of range, the Aventon advertises up to 60 miles of range. And I think the range is probably pretty accurate. That would obviously be if you're traveling at eco mode. You know, I go in turbo and I definitely could get 30 miles, probably no problem at all. I've never felt any range anxiety with this bike. I mean, I haven't like gone like, you know, 40 miles in one ride, but I definitely never feel particularly concerned about it when I'm riding. And you know, and the rear rack is nice. It comes included with the Aventon Aventure 2. It helps to give the bike some cargo capacity. Even now as I ride to the store, I've got my Amazon return in one pannier, and I've got a bunch of other stuff in the other pannier. And the entire setup here with the handlebars is very comfortable. So overall, no issues with the ride quality. I do think an important consideration is the torque sensor, and to think about whether a torque sensor is right for you. Because I will say that one thing about having a torque sensor is it does require a little bit more energy on your part to pedal. The plus side is that it is more exercise, like you actually are doing something with the bike, and it's a much more natural feel to have the torque sensor. But it can be an issue for people who aren't in the best shape. You know, my friend who uses his bike a lot, on really hot days, he can't use this bike very much because he does feel a little bit tired, although he can use the throttle to get around. But the torque sensor does add a little bit of your own power you have to use when you're pedaling. And so I said this in my first video on this bike, but if you are looking at getting the Aventon Aventure 2, I would highly recommend test riding and feeling out what you think of the torque sensor. Some people are going to prefer the cadence sensor, some people prefer the torque sensor. Honestly, for me, I'm probably actually more of a cadence sensor guy. I kind of just like spinning the pedals and the bike just goes. But that's, I think, is really more of a personal preference on how you feel about it. So yeah, in terms of range, in terms of power, in terms of how good this bike feels for the price, I've been very happy with it. I think this is probably one of the better fat tire options out there. From my view, this bike is very well made and a fair price for what you're getting for it. That being said, if you are someone who likes these like souped up, crazy fast bikes, this isn't the type of bike for that. This is really more of like an actual bike. Like, it's an actual fat tire bike. You use it to ride around. In terms of looks, people love it. I've noticed, especially old people, they seem to really like this bike for some reason. I think it's just something about the look of it is very appealing to some people. Okay, we're gonna hit the exit up here pretty soon. That was a really fast ride, actually. That's the advantage when you got a bike that's going 20 plus miles per hour. You just really fly, and you don't even notice. And you can see, if you're riding on a bike path like this, where you don't even have to stop for traffic, you really go flying, and the time goes by quickly. Yeah, here we go. This is our exit. This exit takes us into like the neighborhood, and then it's just a little ride across to get to where we need to go. Yeah, in terms of maintenance so far, I really haven't had to do any maintenance yet. I've had no flat tires or anything. Tires seem sturdy. No issues with the brakes. You know, these are hydraulic disc brakes, so if you do have to do any maintenance on them, it's a little bit more work because you have to bleed the brakes and that kind of stuff. But so far, everything has been real smooth. And yeah, and you can see we just rode all the way out here, about 6 miles, and my battery's still at 95%. There's a good amount of range. There's a lot of range on this bike, especially if you're pedaling. If you're gonna pedal this bike, because of the torque sensor, you're putting more of your power into it, it'll really help conserve some battery power. So I think you could take this 40 miles out and you'd be totally fine. And that was really quick for me to get out to this Kohl's, actually. How long did it take me? It only took me 19 minutes to get 6 miles. I feel like it would have taken me 15 minutes to drive out here. And there's the Kohl's right there. I'm surprised, this Kohl's has bike racks out front. I actually did not expect for there to be bike racks out front of this Kohl's, so that is surprising. Kudos to them. One thing about the Aventon Aventure 2 is locking wise, it's a little bit more of a pain because you kind of have to work it. Either get yourself a chain that can go through everything, or you're gonna have to kind of squeeze it through this guy, because the tube is too big for like a U-lock to fit through. Okay, let's go do it. It's kind of funny that Kohl's does the Amazon returns. I kind of wonder if it makes them any business or anything.
Yeah. Hi there.
Hi, I've got this Amazon return.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
All right, so all good then? Thank you. Do have 20% off. Maybe I'll buy one of these shirts. I think I'll grab this shirt. Yeah, $8 for a t-shirt. I think that's a good deal. Yeah, I'm really surprised this Kohl's has all these bike racks out front. Like, it does not strike me as the type of place that would do that, so pretty sweet, actually. We'll talk about some downsides or some things, not necessarily downsides, but some things I've noticed about the bike on the return trip home. So the interesting thing is when I turn the bike off and then turn it back on, it came at 95%, and then when I turn it back on now it says 98% battery. We just went 6 miles and it says I have 98% battery. So it seems like a lot. That seems like more than there should be, but who knows? There's a Panera Bread here, and I've got a Panera subscription for a free drink. So I'm gonna roll in there and grab myself a drink real quick. We're gonna get the Gavi lemonade. Okay, so we're gonna head back home, take the same bike path back, and on the way back, I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the things I've noticed, some little nitpicky things, some of the kind of negative things as well about the bike. It's not a ton of stuff that I have issues with, but it's some things that are worth noticing. One thing I've noticed is, and it doesn't happen all the time, so I couldn't quite figure it out, is I sometimes would feel a little bit of wheel wobble in the front, a little bit of speed wobble. It's not always. So it might just have been because maybe I was aligned a little bit. I sometimes have trouble getting the handlebars lined up properly. Right now you can see I'm riding no-handed and there's no speed wobble at all. So whether you'll feel any speed wobble, I don't know, I can't quite tell. I have felt it occasionally, but not enough for it to be a concern. Another thing I noticed that is a little bit more annoying is the pedals. So often if I'm taking kind of a sharp turn, the pedals will actually hit the ground. And it always surprises me every time it does that. And this is a thing that only happens when I'm riding this bike. So it's not like my riding style. I think it's just the design of the bike makes the pedals lower to the ground or something. From a practical standpoint, it just means that you need to make sure that if you're turning, not to turn too sharply, because otherwise you are going to hit the ground with the pedals. I think I've noticed it happen more on the left side. My left pedal is definitely much more scratched up because I'll take a turn, like turning left, and then it'll scratch the pedal. The pedal will just hit the ground, and you know, I haven't fallen or anything because of it, but it definitely does like wake me up when I do that. Another thing, the front rack that Aventon offers for this bike is not a great one. I actually ended up taking it off. I felt like having it on made it so that, I don't know, it didn't feel lined up to me for some reason. Like everything kind of felt a little bit off. And then the way that rack is set up wasn't great because it's not really like a basket. It's just like an open rack. And so, you know, I'd put some stuff on it, and then if I hit a bump, it would just, everything would fall off. And you know, that actually happened once when I was doing a delivery where it just, the delivery fell off the bag and I like rode over all the stuff. So the front rack, I don't recommend it. I ultimately just ended up not having the front rack on it, and I feel like it rides a lot better now. So the other thing with this bike is that it does not come with a bell. And so if you get this bike, I highly recommend getting a bell for it. It's an e-bike, you can go pretty fast on it. And so it's good to be able to notify people that you're on the way and that you're coming. But yeah, overall, this bike has really been excellent. It has required no maintenance on my part so far in the 500, 600 miles I've ridden it. Battery range is good, the power is good. Other than those small things where, you know, the pedals are a little bit low to the ground, the occasional, very rare front wheel wobble I've experienced sometimes, and I can't seem to replicate right now, so it doesn't happen all the time. And you can see if you pedal it, because it's a torque sensor, you gotta really pedal hard to get out to 28. You can see just how fast this bike can go when unlocked. My final thoughts on this bike after 500 miles, it's a low maintenance bike. It's worked perfectly for me so far, and I think it is ultimately a very good fat tire e-bike. So after 500 miles, I highly recommend this bike. It's actually one of my favorite bikes I have. I think it's well built, I think it's powerful, and I think it has good use cases for many different types of riders. Anyway, I think that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this update video on the Aventon Aventure 2. My time riding it has been very pleasant, and after 500 miles, I still highly recommend this bike. Anyway, thanks for watching, Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And until next time, I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.